In a previous video, I diagnosed a bad rear window motor on an 8th generation Honda Civic. Well, I got the new part in, so let's go see if I made the right call, and if I did, we'll go ahead and get this window regulator / motor assembly replaced. Let's get to work. This right rear window is the one that's giving us issues, so in order to get to that window regulator, we got to get this door panel off. In order to do it, here's my 3 favorite tools for getting Honda door panels off. We got a number 2 vessel screwdriver. We got a little Craftsman flathead screwdriver. This is probably my favorite screwdriver. And we got a little trim tool. That's what I'm going to use. Alright, right here behind the door handle, we got to get this little plastic cover off. We'll just use a little screwdriver to do that. Alright, we'll see if I can get it holding the camera. But we just got to press that little tab in and then pry it out. Usually it helps to do it with 2 hands, and then we can just pop it out. But there, I was able to get it. That's all there is. And there's a little tab on the back, so make sure you don't pry from that end or you'll snap that little thing right off. Alright, looking back in there, you can see we have a screw right here, and we have this little clip right here. There's a center piece on that clip. Hopefully you can see it. Typically we just take a screwdriver, press that center piece in, and then it'll come out when we pull the handle out. That's usually how I get those out. You can try to push it in and then pop the thing out before you take the handle, but usually once you push that centerpiece in, it'll come out with the handle. And for that screw, we can just reach through the handle just like this and pull it out. And this little clip right here, we'll just go in there and just push it in. See if we can push it in. This one might be stuck. There we go. Hopefully you can see where that center piece is popped in. You just got to press it in a little bit. These plastic clips can be a little brittle, so you just got to be careful with them. Okay, now like before, we got to pop this piece out. And there is a little tab right down there if you want to put a screwdriver or something in there. I just find that it's easier just to go right in here. Just kind of help it up and then pull it back like that, and that pulls it out. And now we can expose our connector, which we can go ahead and unplug right now. And to unplug it, you just have to press down on this little tab right here. And when you're taking off Honda door panels, there's usually a screw somewhere right in here. Sometimes it's under this cover, sometimes there's a cover down here where it's under, or sometimes it's right down here. In this case, our screw's right there. We got to pop that one out. Okay, now that we got the screws and that clip taken care of, now most door panels on these Hondas, they're held in with a series of clips all the way around. And usually you can just reach around somewhere down here or over here. I usually like to go over here. And we can just kind of grab this plastic edge and pull it out. But on this Civic, there's a little bit of lip, and it kind of goes around, so you can't quite grab it. So what I like to do, just take my trim tool, pop it under there like that, and then we should be able to just work it a little bit and just get them popped free. And you can see now I can get my fingers in there and pop the rest of them. All you have to do is overcome that first one. And there we go. And we want to get the ones on this side. And basically we want it to be hanging from up here. So if we did it right, it should just kind of be floating back and forth like that. And if you notice this door handle, it is detached. You can see that that clip is no longer holding it. We might even be able to reach in there and pop it out so we don't lose it. In fact, we'll try to do that. Okay, I got it. So there it is right there, and it looks like it's a little bit worse for the wear. Now, the door panel is just hanging right here, so we can lift it up and get it up and off. But the problem is, our door handle right here is still secured to the door panel, and that handle has a couple of cables that are coming over here. And so we need to detach this handle from the door panel before we just pull it all the way off. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to lift the door panel up and out, and then I'm going to reach around and then try to disconnect the clips that are holding this handle to the panel. Usually there's 3 clips, like 2 up here or 1 down here or vice versa. Maybe 1 over here and down here. Different models, they have them in different places, but usually there's 3 of them we have to contend with. And in this case, there was 4. Made a liar out of me. Instead of 3, there were 4 on this one. And if we look at our handle, that's what the clips look like that. And all I did was just press them down with a screwdriver. I just press them down and start pulling the handle out, and then go to the next one and press it down and try to start working it out. And I try to get the top out, or the bottom, it doesn't matter which way I start. Get one side out, and then work on the other ones. In this case, yeah, there were 4. There's the other 2 right there. Now, so that this thing isn't hanging down in our way for the purposes of filming, I'm just going to take the screw and put it back in where it belongs, and just going to pin this up so it's up out of the way. Now, our window regulator lives behind this piece of plastic, so we're going to have to get it off. Usually this plug right here we can just kind of pull out like that, and now it's out. And then usually these Civics, I can just peel this back, no problem. You see it sticks onto this stuff nicely. Other Hondas, I cannot get this stuff off like this, and I have to cut the plastic. But in this, it's kind of nice that we can just peel this back and expose our work area. So I'll just put the camera down and get the rest of this plastic off. Okay, with the plastic back, there's our window regulator right there, and the motor for it is right there. You can just see the end of it, and of course our plug goes right down over there. It's bolted in down here, and it's bolted in up here. So I am going to have to move this door handle again, but it was more convenient for me to put it up rather than have it lay down in the way of the camera when I was pulling this plastic back. But if you're doing this at home, you can just leave this, pull the plastic back, and just work with it, move it out of the way as necessary. I do want to warn you that these cables, though, where the plastic pieces attach, they can break pretty easily on some of these models. So we want to be careful moving these things around. Okay, before I pull the window regulator, I want to do one final check, and I'll try to get you a shot. Right down there, I'm going to unplug the motor right at that connector, that white connector. Just like that. I just got to press that tab in right there. Okay, with it disconnected, we can see that this connector has 2 wires going to the motor. And if you remember from my testing, that's going to be the wires 7 and 8 that we were looking at earlier up at the switch. And so what I want to do now that it's disconnected is I'm just going to put a test light across those 2 wires, and we are going to place a load on the entire circuit. And then we'll just activate the switch, and it should light our test light if everything is good, including the switches. Now we know our power is good coming up to that switch, but there could be a problem with the switch completing the contacts and supplying power down here. So this is the final test I want to do to ensure that we're replacing the correct part. I keep test leads from Hondas. I usually cut them off harnesses when I replace parts, and I believe this piece right here will snap into our plug right there that's going to the motor, and then we can test right there. That way I won't do any damage to that plug. If I do anything, I'll just damage my little test piece here. So let's go see if this fits. Alright, if we look at our connector, hopefully you can see that the 2 wires are on this side over here. So where is our 2 wires, or our 2 terminals are right there. So hopefully it snaps into place like this. Come on. Yeah, perfect. And we should be able to just do our testing right there. Okay, we got the key on. Now, in order to test it, we have to plug this switch back in. Now, when we activate the switch, we're going to provide power and ground down there to our test little component. So as long as we just put our leads in there, and I just got to be careful not to cross the leads or I'll blow a fuse. Now, if everything's working correctly, including the switch, when I pull it up and push it down, it should light our test light. So there's up, and that's nice and bright, and there's down. So up and down, it works good. So that confirms our diagnosis. We have a bad window motor, which means we have to replace the entire regulator. So let's get to it. Actually, how about one more test, the old tap test. We'll get our flashlight out of the way, and we'll pull our little test piece out of the way, and we'll plug this motor back in. And so we got everything connected. Let's see if it actually works right now. And it doesn't. But let's bang on the motor a little bit and see if we can drop this thing down. And I'll just press in the down position while I'm doing this. And there we go. We got it to work. The old tap test. So that's good. Now I can get to the 2 bolts right here. Can you see? Let me get you a shot. Right here, now we can easily get to the two bolts that are holding this regulator onto the glass, and we can loosen those up and then move the glass up out of the way. And I really love that tap test, especially when you're dealing with stuff like this where this window was stuck in the up position and those bolts right there would be up here. Now in some models there's access holes and we can get in there and get to the bolts with the window being, you know, at its rest position, like all the way up. But in this case I'm not seeing any, so I don't think this Civic has them. I'm pretty sure it doesn't. A lot of Hondas don't have them. And so we need to get that window regulator down here. Otherwise you got to deal with trying to get the screws up this way with a wrench, or sometimes down here, and on a vehicle like this where it has tint, you're going to probably scratch the tint. So it's definitely easier to get it down here, and the old tap test can make it happen. And while I'm mentioning it, you can also use that test. Say your window is stuck in the position right here where it's down and it won't go up, the exact opposite of what we had. Well, I'll just do the same thing. Tap on that motor while you're pushing up or pulling up, and a lot of times you can get it to work at least once or twice, and put it all the way up. And then what I do in that situation is I unplug the motor, so that way somebody doesn't inadvertently hit the switch and put it down again, because it always happens when it's raining or something like that. So that can usually get you out of a pinch when, like, say you can't get the part for a while, or maybe you don't have the money to grab that part right now. Do the tap test, get that window in the up position all the way, and then unplug it so it can't be moved again until we can get it fixed properly. Okay, now that we have this in a good position, I'm going to go ahead and turn the key off so we're not supplying power back here so we don't pop any fuses, and then we'll go ahead and disconnect everything. Alright, now that the key's off, we'll go ahead and disconnect our switch here and disconnect the motor. There, as you can see, we're disconnected again. Alright, now we're going to pop these two 10s out, and that'll release the window from the regulator, and then we can lift the window up, and then I'll just pin it up here. I just have a tool that loops around with some suction cups and holds it up in place. And they're the same. Now hopefully you can see the window right there. If I lift it up, we'll try it. You see how it's now disconnected. So we're good right there. Now we just got to hold it up in place all the way to the top. And to do that, what I do is I'll just grab the window and pull it all the way up, and then I'll use these suction cups with this little wire, and we'll just suction it on one side and wrap the wire over and suction it to the other, and that holds it in place. Alright, we'll just take these. We'll put one right there, and we'll put the other one right about there. Then we'll lift the window up like that, and we'll just bring it around and pop it into place. And just like that, that'll hold it long enough for us to work on the window. Another little trick while I'm thinking of it, sometimes I mentioned these things are stuck up here, and even when you do the tap test you can't get them to move down here where we can get the bolts out. What I like to do is I'll just cut these cables right here, because that's what this is riding on, these cables. That's what's moving it up and down. So I'll just cut the cables, and then I can get the window right here where I need it, and I can get the bolts out easy. One thing to remember though, when you cut the cables, that window's going to drop. So what I typically do is you got to hold on to it while you cut the cables, and then you can slowly just lower it where you need to, pull the bolts out, and then pull it all the way up and pin it. So you just got to be careful, don't drop that window and shatter it, because then you'll have two issues you got to deal with. Now a window regulator is still bolted in place, so we got to get the bolts out. We got 3 down here it looks like, and I believe we have 2 up here. It looks like 1 right there and 1 right here. So we're going to have to get our handle out of the way now so we can get to those. Okay, I just pulled that door handle back off. Now we could pop these 3 out down here. Should be 10mm. We can just use a 10mm socket. We could pop this one out. This one we can just loosen. That way our window regulator will hang in place, because you see we have a keyed area where we can just lift it up and then pull it off, and that helps us so it won't drop down before we're ready. There are those 3. This 4th one right here was the same as these 3 down here, so you don't have to worry about mixing those up. However, the two that were holding our window in place are different, so don't get those mixed up with the other ones. Okay, now our window regulator is just hanging by this one right here. We should be able to just lift it up and then snake it out, hopefully over here. And just like that. That's how it sits in the car, so we'll have to fish our new one in just like that. Here's the new window regulator assembly, made by TYC. There's your part number 660463. And where's it made? Made in Taiwan. Okay, I took the new one out of the packaging. You always want to compare your new one with the old one, and they look the same, or at least close enough. There's always usually some little variations with these aftermarket window regulators, but I looked. You can't even get a Honda one for this vehicle right now, at least as of the time I'm filming this video. The only difference I noticed is this one has a plug with some wiring, whereas our plug over here is actually attached to the motor. But I looked, and it's the same exact plug, so we'll just have to pin this up out of the way so it doesn't hit anything or get caught in the motor, or sorry, the window. But other than that, the bolts, everything looks good. I think what I will do though is I'll plug this new one in and we'll move this down into position about right here. Usually the new ones come like that, but in this case this one didn't. So I'm just going to move it down in about the same position as our old one. Alright, I just got it plugged in, got the key on. Whoops, we'll just move it down. I don't know, about right there ought to be good. Okay, now that we got the new one set in position about where the old one is, we want to take this bolt right here, if I can get it out with my hands. Yeah, I might have to go get a wrench. And then we'll just put it right here. Now we can hang this new one just like we took the old one off. Okay, looking at our new one, it goes into place like that. So we should be able to just fish it in this way, and drop the bottom down, and try not to get it caught in our plastic here. And then we just bring it up, and then right here it kind of hooks on this little piece, and then it hooks right there. So now everything is somewhat lined up. We can just go ahead and get the bolts started. Not sure if you could see this little tab, but it just hangs right there, and that lines up the bolt hole there. And of course, that goes there. And our 3 bolt holes are pretty close to being lined up there. We'll just have to move it over slightly. Okay, this thing's just barely holding on into place, so I'm holding it so it won't flop around. See if we can get one of these bolts started. Okay, at least now it shouldn't flop all around. I got one, hopefully you can see. I got this one started right here. And we'll see if we can get this one up here started. Once you get the first one lined up, the rest usually kind of fall into place. Alright, now we'll just snug these up and torque them to proper spec. Usually 1 UGA is the proper torque spec. Now these bolts are only like 7.2 foot-pounds, so just be smart with them and don't try to crush them down. Now I know my tools, so I know what I can UGA and what I can't, but I'll just double check, make sure they're all snug, and they're all good. I'm confident with those. Okay, now we can lower the glass back down. So we'll just hold on to the window so we don't drop it. Lower it down gently right into place. And now we can put our bolts right through there. Okay, now we should be able to take our silver bolts that we took out of the old one. We should be able to put them right here. That one goes there. And this one we should be able to get right in there. And we'll do the same thing. We'll just snug those up. And I don't want any hammering action right next to the window. So we'll just do these by hand. Remember, most of these 10 millimeters, 7.2. Now of course, we have to plug these in together But we don't just want this wire just hanging out where it can get hit by the window or caught on stuff. So I'll plug it in, and then I think what I'll do is I'll probably pin it down below. I'll probably zip tie it down below, someplace where it'll be out of the way, and also we don't want it to rattle like that. So we got to pin it to where it's nice and secure and won't just make a racket. Because when you're going down the road and you hear that, you'll be really mad that you got to take this all back apart. And of course, when we plug it in, we want to make sure our two pins right there mate with our two pins that are over there. So that should just snap right into place just like that. Now I heard it click, so now we're nice and secure. Now we just got to zip tie it down below. Okay, I got it zip tied down there in a couple places so it's secure and it won't rattle. So we should be good to go. Now, because we're right here, we'll just plug the switch in, turn the key on, and then we'll just verify that the window works. If it does, we'll put it all the way up. Alright, the key's on. We'll just plug this back in, and we'll go down. We'll make sure nothing's in our way. There's down, up, down, up. I think we're good. Okay, now's a good time to stop. Make sure we're not missing any steps. We got the key off, so we're not shorting anything out. We got our motor plugged in and buttoned down. We got these three and those secure. We got the two bolts in the window secure. So I think we can go ahead and start buttoning everything up. All right, I think we can go ahead and just take our paper here, see if we can't get it put back into place exactly how it was before we took it apart. And we can go ahead and put this little plug back in up here. Okay, now I think we're ready to go ahead and hang our door panel back on here. We just got to remember that this needs to come up through the little handle or where the switch is. And then this we need to fish through, and then once we get it through we can snap it back into place. And there, we should be good to go. If our holes line up here and here, then we know we're pretty much lined up. Now we do want to make sure that none of the clips stayed in the door panel. I already looked at that and I don't believe any stayed in there. Most of them stayed, or all of them stayed in our panel itself and not in the door. But we just want to make sure it's hanging up here and we get this back in position. Okay, there's a closer look. Our hole is lined up right there, and our hole is lined up right there. So that means our door panel is pretty much in place where we want it. And of course, this is sticking out so we can plug it back in. And the clips over here that I was talking about, there's one right there. Sometimes, you know, they stick in the metal over here and you have to pry them out and put them back into the door panel. But we look like we're good to go. They all seem to be in our plastic door panel where they belong. Now, as long as this is in place and everything's lined up, we should be able to just snap all those clips back into place. Just like that. Now we'll put the long silver screw that goes right here near the handle. We'll put that back in, because that gives it strength right here. When you pull on this, this holds it in place. So we got to make sure we get this back in there. And it's just a plastic insert in there, so we don't need to crush it down. We just need to get it snugged up, and that's it. Don't keep cranking on it, you'll strip it out. And we'll finish buttoning this up. We'll just go ahead and get our switch plugged back in. We want to make sure it snaps into place, and then this needs to clip and hook up in the front there. So we got to get that up under there, and then we can kind of snap it all back into place. If it doesn't feel like it wants to go, stop, take a look, see what's going on. Now our little plastic piece that goes in the handle, I'm just going to take the center piece out. I'm going to put this in and get it flush, and then I'll put the center piece in flush, and it should be good to go. I don't have a new one of these, and this is a very specialty clip, and so we're going to have to reuse it even though it's a little bit broken. Alright, you can see we got that clip back installed. Now we just got to get the screw. And just like down here, it's just a plastic insert, so we don't need to crush it. As soon as you feel it snug up, that's it, we're good. And we'll just snap this back into place. Of course, this little tab goes in first, and then this back piece will snap in. All right, we got the switch back in place. We got the handle all taken care of, and we got that cover back in there. Now we just got to do one final test. Make sure this window still works. Okay, we got the key on. Let's see if it works. Okay, it goes down. It goes up from this switch. Let's go check the driver switch, make sure it works from there. And checking from the master switch. Looks like we're good to go. And anytime we're pulling door panels, we're usually manipulating the locking mechanisms and things like that. So it's always a good idea. Double check. Make sure that it opens from the inside and the outside. And make sure that the locks work. And we're good to go. Yeah, because some of these door panels, there's a locking mechanism that pops up and down that can start getting bound up in there, and so it's always a good habit. Just make sure everything works when you're all done. Well, that's it for this one. Looks like we made the right call and got this thing fixed. And as always, if the video helped you out or you liked it, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.